Tonight, D-Day for Echuca. Anger as the floods peak and Victoria closes in on a rainfall record. The latest live. Also a driver accused of being high on ice when he crashed into a kitchen, hitting a woman. Ross Lyon targets unfinished business as he becomes a saint again. The Reserve Bank delivers more bad news for homeowners. The Melbourne Cup Carnival set to burst back to life with hundreds of thousands trackside. And later, Melbourne's school crossing nightmare.
Live from Melbourne, 7 News with Peter Mitchell starts now.
Good evening. Victoria is on track to record one of our wettest Octobers after another wave of heavy rain in the state's flood-weary north. Echuca has been drenched again, but there are predictions the Murray River has finally peaked. So far, the levee is holding, but it's left the town divided.
A single pump to save an entire street caught on the wrong side of Echuca.
Just pumping water. Flat out. Got CFA from Echuca finally give us a pump, but that's the only help we've had.
Already flooded by the swollen Murray and Campaspe rivers, the border town copped a drenching.
Hearing that heavy rain, I just thought, oh my God.
Mary Ann Richardson's sister couldn't go it alone. Without help from the council or the SES, it was left to family to pull shifts to save her home.
She's stressed and tired, and, you know, this is her whole life.
Goulburn Road residents feel abandoned by authorities.
We haven't seen any help from the Shire, even now, not even offer of some pumps or anything like that. It takes you 5 hours to catch up to where you were, and then you get another downpour.
The flood crisis, now a tale of two towns, those on the right and wrong side of the dirt levee.
Just the village people have saving the town, saving outside of the wall. The wall has divided the town.
Today was D-Day and the 2.5 kilometre dirt wall held strong. The Murray River finally peaked at 94.9 metres, well above major flood levels of 1993.
All this rainfall has meant October's rainfall for Victoria is likely to be one of the 10th wettest on record.
In nearby Moama, heartbreak for the owners of the heritage Paracuta station. A sandbag levee built to protect the old barn broke under the weight of the day's deluge.
We had 33 mil of rain and that topped it. If we didn't have that rain, we would have been right. But it's the way it goes.
It will be days before the water starts going down.
We might see a very small rise above that, but again it is intended to stay steady at that level for several days.
Jodie Lee is in Echuca tonight, and Jodie, as we heard, the water's peaked, but the danger's set to stay for days ahead.
Well, Mitch, the focus now really is Sunday and Monday. We are expecting more widespread rain then, which will no doubt place further pressure on these already swollen river systems. Further northwest from here in areas like Swan Hill and Mildura, they're being urged to prepare now for their own deluge in the first week of November. But in some good news, Shepparton isn't expecting any major flooding. As for Echuca, these floodwaters are expected to stay this high for several days yet. Mitch?
Jodie Lee at Echuca, thank you. A court has been told the driver of a stolen Mercedes was high on a cocktail of drugs when the car ploughed into a house. A 60-year-old woman was crushed when the vehicle crashed into her kitchen as she prepared dinner for her family.
It took just 2 terrifying seconds for this stolen Mercedes to fly through a red light and into this Sunshine North home.
The whole bonnet inside the house.
Kim Cowell was in the kitchen cooking when she was crushed.
She collapsed on the floor, and all the cabinet, all the wall roof on top of her.
The driver is accused of fleeing the crash before being caught by police, leaving his victim badly injured and in agony. Late today, the Sunshine Magistrates Court was told the 37-year-old was on heroin and meth when he ploughed through the Plymouth Close property.
Very loud noise, I get shocked. Yeah, that's still in my mind. I am really dizzy.
Mrs. Cowell was taken here to the Royal Melbourne Hospital where she spent the day undergoing tests. The 60-year-old has cuts to her face and an injured leg, but she's expected to make a full recovery. The family was gathering to honour their late father, a get-together that almost turned to tragedy.
It's very lucky to her and us. We was only 3 here. If more people come in, I don't know what could happen.
The Flemington man will face court again in November. Sarah Jones, 7 News.
Ross Lyon is targeting what he describes as unfinished business after he was officially appointed St Kilda coach for the second time. Lyon's multi-million-dollar 4-year deal was signed more than a decade after he walked out on the club.
Marching back into Moorabbin 11 years after he stormed out.
I'm really up for the fight. I feel like I'm ready to take the emotional risk to give everything.
Ross Lyon returns with the lure of being the man to snap St Kilda's 56-year premiership drought after falling short 3 times during his first stint with the Saints.
I am back in our 150th year for unfinished business. It's an Everest that can be climbed, needs to be climbed, and I'd like to be the person to do that with a group.
Lyon's appointment comes just 11 days after Brett Ratton's brutal sacking.
The review is pointing straight at Ross Lyon as the very clear first choice.
But after blindsiding Mark Harvey at the Dockers, Lyon says he had no part in Ratton's removal.
It was very clear that I would enter no discussions, and the words I use are a bit stronger than that, why you had a senior coach.
Plenty has changed at St Kilda since Ross was last boss.
To be honest, when we were here, it was a condemned building. This is like Disneyland at St Kilda. This is incredible.
A new playing list, potentially a less ruthless edge.
I'm certainly, I don't know if I'm cuddly Ross, but...
And a pledge to win back the fans.
They're passionate, we want them to be passionate. I say just give me the opportunity to get into action.
Lyon revealed it was a call from AFL legend Lee Matthews just this week that sealed his decision to return here to the Saints and turn his back on a career in the media and commercial property.
And he said, you don't wake up one day and think, I want to coach AFL football.
I think to hear there's got unfinished business here is music to our ears.
There's no victory lap here, and I've heard that term before and I like it. This is just the starting gun going off.
Mitch Cleary, 7 News.
The Reserve Bank has delivered more bad news for homeowners, warning the property slide is set to get bigger. The bank's modelling is predicting prices could fall by as much as 20%.
Investing in Melbourne real estate used to be safe as houses.
Sold! Congratulations!
But new modelling from the RBA reveals our house prices could be set to slide. The bank is forecasting values could plummet by 20% in the next 2 years. That would wipe around $200,000 off the value of an average Melbourne home.
Melbourne is one of the more sensitive markets to increases in interest rates because it's one of the less affordable cities. So you do have to take out more debt to buy into those markets.
In a report made public through Freedom of Information, RBA economists noted, we're now anticipating housing prices to decline over the next few years. That reflects the ongoing slowing in momentum in the market.
It's incredibly important to model out different scenarios.
CoreLogic data shows our city's house prices have already fallen by 6.4% since January, shrinking the value of a typical home by around $53,000.
The fact that we've only seen housing prices fall by 6% now, a little bit more than 6%, is maybe the surprising thing, and we should expect that prices will probably trend lower from here.
Melbourne is second only to Sydney when it comes to falling house prices. The RBA says both cities will see values drop by 1.5% each month until the end of the year. The bank is set to meet again next Tuesday. Estelle Greeping, 7 News.
Major Victorian road and rail projects have taken a hit as the Albanese government slashes and burns to start paying off the nation's staggering debt. It's found billions in savings by dumping Scott Morrison's election promises.
They say it'll be a family-friendly budget.
That also removes some of the waste and rorts that have riddled the budget.
$22 billion of waste and rot, slashing $3.5 billion from contractors, consultants and advertising, axing $2 billion in Morrison government pre-election grants and re-profiling $6.5 billion in infrastructure projects, cancelling a $250 million project on Glen Ferry Road in former Treasurer Josh Frydenberg's old seat of Kooyong, a $7.5 million commuter car park in Sydney's Hurstville and Rockhampton's $1 billion ring road delayed.
We've looked closely at infrastructure, we've looked closely at the grants programs, but it is right across government.
The opposition claims it's politically motivated to help Victorian Premier Dan Andrews' re-election next month and dumping programs in coalition seats.
I think you could pool these promises into a group of often last-minute, underfunded, undercooked, out-of-time promises from a government that was out of time.
It's rural and regional communities that are going to pay the price.
Slashing and burning projects that drive productivity and participation in the workforce, that doesn't make sense.
7 News can reveal Treasurer Jim Chalmers will bank a big slice of the $100 billion windfall from record coal and gas exports, reducing deficits over the 4 years by about $40 billion. Improving the structural position as the outlook gets gloomier, with economic growth for next year already revised down in July from 2.5% to 2%, dropped further to just 1.5%.
The long term is the real challenge for the Australian budget, and that's why the spending audit needs to keep going.
To ensure that we don't add to the inflation dragon.
A dragon threatening to burn the budget books.
And political editor Mark Riley joins us now from Canberra. Mark, why is the government looking to cut the deficit instead of giving cash handouts to ease the cost of living?
Well, Mitch, it's about attacking the cost of living from another direction, I suppose. Reducing the deficit improves the budget's structural position and it takes pressure off inflation and interest rates, which both drive prices up. That'll get a big tick from the ratings agencies and the markets, while voters might shrug their shoulders a bit and ask, where's the money? But as Liz Truss found out in Britain recently, splashing cash around in inflationary times only makes things worse. Deficit reduction isn't flashy, but it is a responsible way of easing cost of living pressures. Mitch?
Mark Riley in Canberra, thank you. The jury in the Bruce Lerriman Parliament House rape trial has been told there's no pressure to reach a verdict quickly. Isabel Mullen is at the ACT Supreme Court, and Isabel, jurors have been deliberating for a number of days now.
Good evening, Peter. They certainly have. They've been told that time is not an issue here and they can take as long as they need. We heard from the jury for the first time this morning at around 10 o'clock. They had a note for Chief Justice Lucy McCallum asking if they could have more time, instructing her that they were unable to reach a unanimous verdict beyond reasonable doubt. They asked if they could have more time, to which she said they could and should take as long as they need. They do have a really big question to answer here. Is Bruce Lerriman guilty or not guilty of raping Brittany Higgins in Parliament House in 2019? Whatever verdict they do come back with here, it must be unanimous. They will return to the ACT Supreme Court tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock to continue deliberations. Peter?
Isabel Mullen in Canberra, thank you. A pedestrian has been hit and killed by a car at St Albans. The man had been speaking to the driver of a ute moments before he was struck by the car around 2 o'clock this morning. Paramedics rushed the man to hospital, but he couldn't be saved. The driver stopped and was released after speaking with police. 37 pedestrians have died on Victoria's roads this year, compared to 21 for the same time last year. Boris Johnson won't fill the UK's current leadership vacuum and return to his old job. Hugh Whitfeld is at Downing Street this evening, and Hugh, Mr Johnson says returning to number 10 wouldn't be the right thing to do.
He admitted he can't unite the Conservative Party, Peter. Many believe he simply didn't have the support to mount a campaign, nor form a stable government less than 2 months after leaving Downing Street. He tried to strike a pact with both other candidates in the leadership race, but was rebuffed. Mr Johnson said the best thing is that I do not allow my nomination to go forward and commit my support to whoever succeeds. So either Rishi Sunak, who went up against Liz Truss last time round, or Penny Mordaunt will become PM, possibly as soon as today.
I have held 9 ministerial roles, 3 in Cabinet. I was a minister before Rishi Sunak was even elected to Parliament.
Opposition parties want a general election amid all the chaos, but one isn't due for another 2 years. Mitch?
Hugh Whitfield at number 10. Thank you. More than 300,000 racegoers are set to attend the Melbourne Cup Carnival, giving Victorian tourism a desperately needed boost. The finishing touches are already being applied to Flemington, which is primed to finally welcome big crowds back to the track.
The Melbourne Cup Carnival back with a bang. The famous Flemington stand set to be filled for the first time in 3 years.
300,000 people across the 4 days. We just simply can't wait.
COVID rules banned all fans in 2020. Just 10,000 were allowed per day last year. This year's theme, glorious.
You know I'm back, like I never left.
The Cup is back too after a 3-month tour of Australia, arriving home today among 17,000 roses. The 162nd edition of the Great Race tipped to pump $3 billion into the Victorian economy.
I don't know how the planes are going to cope when the whole of Australia decides to turn up in Melbourne. One thing you don't have to worry, the VRC will not run out of food or drink.
This is what they'll all be competing for on November 1st. Veteran jockey Damien Oliver are hoping it'll be his 4th time lucky.
Not a good sign to hold the cup before you win it, so hopefully we'll be handling it on Tuesday.
The 4-day Cup Carnival kicks off with Saturday's Derby, followed by Tuesday's Cup and Thursday's Oaks, and Stakes Day on Saturday, November 5th. More than 1,000 extra public transport services will be put on, and the fashion advice is to go big.
This year we're really expecting bright, bold primary colours.
Kathleen O'Connor, 7 News.
Tim Watson's here now with a look ahead to sport. And Tim, there's been a damning review of the Bombers.
That's right, Mitch. The external review has been released. We'll have those details for you shortly. Also, David Warner under the pump as 90,000 delirious fans packed the MCG for a World Cup thriller. The kids not holding back against a fired-up mascot, Mitch, and 2 sporting superstars are in the doldrums. More on that soon. OK, we'll see you a bit later on. Thank you, Tim.
Melbourne's southeast, west and north are being promised new schools and kindergartens in $1 billion splurge. We'll tell you where the money's going next. Also coming up, the Melbourne man accused of making hundreds of 000 nuisance calls. Climate activists strike again, targeting a Monet with mashed potato. Later, the airline price war hits new heights.
And wet weather returns to Melbourne overnight. The wind eases, but it turns humid and we have the risk of storms. Full details later in 7 News.
A Frankston man has been charged with making hundreds of nuisance calls to emergency services. It's alleged the 73-year-old made 248 calls to 000 in 8 days. That's an average 31 a day. Police claim he made more nuisance calls after he was released on bail following his arrest last Wednesday. He's now behind bars waiting to face court in January. New schools are being promised for some of Melbourne's fastest growing suburbs in the southeast, west and north. It's part of Labor's education pitch to families as the Liberals turn their attention to clean energy.
Signing autographs and rounds of applause. Daniel Andrews went on an education spending spree, but switching election gears wasn't easy.
As they finish one hospital, I can get onto them too if you like, one school rebuild, they can move to the next.
A re-elected Andrews government will spend $850 million upgrading 89 schools.
More than 25% of that funding will go to regional Victoria.
They'll also splash $25 million for the planning of 25 new schools, 8 new in the southeast, including at Casey, Clyde North and Pakenham, as well as schools in the west, including Tarneet and Point Cook, and 7 schools in Mickleham South and Wallen East in the north. The state opposition was focused on the future of electric cars today, committing $50 million to fund 600 charging ports across Victoria.
Okay, so here we are, so we'll just standard clicking, and then we go to green, so it's already charging.
The coalition hopes more charging stations will encourage more Victorians to buy electric.
As an EV owner, I know how important it is to then move from a combustion engine to an EV and know you've got charging ports. But it does cut the cost of your household budget.
Matthew Guy will also pause the Labor government's electric vehicle tax, saving drivers up to $380 a year.
We want to make it easier. Making it easier is about providing incentives, not increasing taxes, providing incentives.
Chanel Vella, 7 News.
Overseas, Russia has accused Ukraine of plotting to use a so-called dirty bomb with radioactive materials. Sarah Greenhalgh is in Kyiv tonight. And Sarah, that claim has been scoffed at by Ukraine's president.
It has, Peter. Good evening. Volodymyr Zelensky says his country never asked for this war and the only participant capable of going nuclear is its enemy. During a series of phone calls with the US, the UK and France, Russia raised this apparent fear that Ukraine is planning a provocation using a dirty bomb laced with radioactive material. Now, there are concerns that this is a so-called false flag, a chance for Russia to cause major harm here and blame it on Ukraine. The West says Moscow's allegation is transparently false and that the world would see through any attempt to use this as a pretext for escalation 8 months to the day since this war began. Peter.
Sarah Greenhalgh in Ukraine. Thank you. Copycat climate protesters have targeted another classic work of art. Activists in Germany threw mashed potato over Monet's Millstones painting, then glued themselves to the wall. The $170 million painting is protected by glass and is expected to be back on display later this week. A wind-powered bulk carrier has arrived in Australia. The Shofu Maru has a giant telescoping sail on the bow which helps propel it forward. The idea is to cut greenhouse gas emissions, and soon other ships are expected to get on board. Police are hunting a sex predator after a bus attack on a teenager in Melbourne's west. The details are next on 7 News. Also, a luxury super yacht goes up in flames. And New Year fireworks return to Melbourne bigger and better. A teenage girl has fought off a sexual predator on a bus in Melbourne's west. Cameron Bowe joins us from the Hoppers Crossing train station. And Cameron, the girl had to use force to escape.
Mitch, the attacker has followed the 15-year-old girl onto a bus here at the Hoppers Crossing train station. They were the only passengers on that bus. He's then sat next to her and asked her inappropriate questions. He's then sexually assaulted the 15-year-old. She's then had to push him away to get out of her seat and off the bus.
It's vulgar. It's a complete invasion of the victim's personal space, especially as a young person, a 15-year-old girl. It took her a lot of courage to be able to forcibly remove someone off of her.
The attacker is believed to be aged between 18 and 25, is of Middle Eastern background and has a thin build. He was last seen on that Route 181 bus when the attack took place last month, Mitch.
Cameron Bowe at Hoppers Crossing, thank you. A luxury super yacht has been destroyed in a massive inferno on Queensland's Hamilton Island. Flames consumed the vessel before lunchtime, sending thick black smoke over the marina. No one was on board at the time. The cause continues to be investigated. US President Joe Biden is reassuring Americans he's up to the job, despite growing concerns he's becoming vague and fragile. Opponents of the 79-year-old are stepping up their attacks ahead of the midterm elections.
We've got to start looking into whether Joe Biden is actually capable of being the president. I think he's not.
Knock on wood, don't want to jinx myself. I'm in good health.
More than half of Americans believe these midterms are the most important in history. A Russian fighter jet has crashed into a residential area in Siberia, killing 2 pilots. Dashcam video caught the moment the plane nosedived and crashed into a 2-storey house, but residents were not injured. Russian authorities say the jet was on a test flight. It's the second crash in less than a week, triggering a criminal investigation. The first batch of birthday cards signed by King Charles and Queen Camilla have been delivered to people celebrating their 100th birthday. The card features a picture of the royal couple taken in 2018 with a signed message inside. During Queen Elizabeth's reign, she sent out over 1 million cards across the Commonwealth. The return of Melbourne's New Year's Eve celebrations is promising to be one of the biggest parties to date. Fireworks will launch from a record number of rooftops, with festivals in every corner of the city.
New Year's Eve is still 2 months away, but organisers are already preparing to shake things up. The Lord Mayor promising this year's celebrations will be bigger than ever before.
We are so pleased to be back in full force for New Year's Eve. We've really missed it. This really is a New Year's Eve where we can say Melbourne is back and we can let loose with the exuberance that Melburnians, Victorians absolutely love.
Marina Pryor will perform at a gala extravaganza at the Arts Centre.
I'm going to be spending it with 60 musicians singing Broadway classics.
Over the same weekend, Falls Festival will bring the world's best acts to the Sydney Myer Music Bowl for the first time. That's all before a dazzling fireworks and laser display from 30 CBD rooftops. There'll also be 4 celebration zones in each corner of the city, including the Docklands, Flagstaff Gardens, Treasury Gardens and King's Domain. Each will have live music, food trucks and a localised fireworks display at 9:30. And one of the best places to view this year's fireworks is here at Atet, a new floating bar with panoramic views of the Docklands skyline.
The backdrop of the city at night is pretty stunning, so yeah, I think it'll be amazing.
Estelle Greeping, 7 News.
Melbourne parents are battling to fix a broken system. Next, they're warning little lives are on the line in a school crossing nightmare. Also coming up, truck mayhem in Melbourne's north leaves a driver injured and sheep on the loose. What's behind a strong day for Australian shares? And after sport, 1 million bargains in the battle for your travel dollar. A driver has been injured when his truck carrying sheep rolled on the Hume Freeway in Melbourne's north. He was taken to hospital after crashing at Thomastown yesterday afternoon, leaving the road blocked. Several sheep died in the crash. Others escaped and had to be recaptured. It has been a strong start to the week on the share market, boosted by mining companies. Here's Network Finance editor Gemma Acton.
Thanks, Peter. There was no looking back for the ASX 200 today, which spiked 103 points to reach 6,779. Every single sector finished in the green, with miners the big winners. After regaining ground in recent days, the Aussie dollar is now slipping again, while iron ore prices have strengthened. That's since last week's lows. And all eyes will be on government finances tomorrow night. Back in 2007, net public debt in Australia was actually negative. Now, after big spending during COVID, it's expected to reach 43% of GDP this year. A lot higher, yes, but still significantly below the US, where it's forecast to reach 100% of GDP. Peter.
Gemma Acton reporting. Angry parents are calling for urgent action to keep children safe on the way to school. They say there's a dire shortage of crossing supervisors, leaving too many roads around schools unmanned.
Across the state, parents are seeing red.
It's not a matter of if but when a child gets hit.
Parents and councils claim the vital school crossing program is broken. A chronic shortage of supervisors and funding means many of our most vulnerable road users are at risk, crossing busy roads unsupervised.
Any parent will know that driver behaviour in and around school zones is absolutely horrendous.
No, when I'm standing here, you don't do that.
A young cyclist was killed at this Oakley crossing, and when Dennis Lucas is away, there's no replacement. In dozens of suburbs like Narre Warren, parents are desperate for crossings to be manned.
It's going to kill somebody one day.
We just need a lollipop lady.
A new survey of 40 Victorian councils found 97% have unsupervised crossing sessions, 82% regularly face supervisor shortages, and 87% consider the program unfit for purpose. The state government allocated almost $26 million in this year's budget to help fund more than 3,200 crossing supervisors across the state. Councils say it's not enough.
I absolutely believe it's a crisis point.
On my watch, no kid will ever be injured. I guarantee you that.
Jackie Quist, 7 News.
Perth's telethon has raised a record $71 million for sick children. The money will be shared between almost 100 beneficiaries, some of which conduct medical research into childhood diseases and run life-changing programs. The event was run live on TV for 26 hours. Sport is next with Tim Watson and Tim. The Bombers are set for a complete overhaul.
They are, Mitch. The external review has been released and it doesn't look pretty either for the players. That's next. Also, the band back together at the Saints. We'll have details of the new Ross Lyon team. The Aussies holding their nerve in Perth while the MCG goes off in a World Cup thriller. Why Jamie Carr is making up for lost time at Flemington. And feathers fly as Freddie the mascot wreaks havoc in the US. Welcome back. The Bombers are in for a gruelling pre-season after the release of a scathing review of the football program. Mitch Cleary has the details, and Mitch, the club is in for a complete overhaul.
Well, Tim, they're set for a leadership group program, a new one, and are prepared to go over the soft cap for football department spending to beef up coaching and address those damning review findings. Among them, an admission they need to drive higher training standards and build a better fitness base for players, and that areas of coaching, physical performance, player development, plus list management and recruitment have lacked unity and a shared vision. There will be pressure on list boss Adrian Dodoro post-November's draft. To St Kilda, those at Moorabbin expecting Robert Harvey to return under Ross Lyon, the club's games record holder just 12 months into life as a Hawthorn assistant. Meantime, the Saints concede they do have contract protections in Ross Lyon's 4-year deal, but it'll be nowhere near Brett Ratton's 6-month payout. The club insisting they did the due diligence on Lyon's off-field behaviour from his time at Fremantle that prompted questions from rival club boards.
Ross and I had lots of conversations about lots of stuff. I mean, we've got full trust and faith in Ross, support his family. The AFL looked into that matter at the time and we're quite comfortable as well. So we go forward with strong faith and trust in Ross and look forward to working with him.
And Brisbane expects Chris Fagan to officially return in coming days amid that AFL investigation. Alistair Clarkson still likely to start as North Melbourne coach on November 1. Tim?
Thanks, Mitch. All-rounder Mitch Marsh insists the Australian camp won't be lacking confidence when they face Sri Lanka tomorrow night. It's a must-win clash for the Aussies' World Cup hopes, with extra distractions thrown David Warner's way.
The Aussies admit their backs are against the wall. Fresh revelations from South African Faf du Plessis regarding Sandpaper Gate won't distract David Warner.
He's had an amazing career and he's clearly been able to block out a lot of distractions throughout that, and that's what separates the best players in the world.
No host nation has won the T20 World Cup. Mitch Marsh insists confidence hasn't been rattled after their New Zealand shocker.
I think if you look down the personnel of our group, confidence is not something that all the boys are shy of.
Marsh says there's no need to panic and rush back Steve Smith or Cameron Green.
We've got great self-belief. As I said before, we know our best is the best in the world.
Last night, the MCG turned a cauldron of colour and was louder than any rock star concert. King Coley put on a show in front of 90,000 passionate fans.
Down the ground, Coley goes out of the ground. Wow. This is a sensational hit from Virat Kohli.
Needing 48 off the final 3 overs against Pakistan, the Indian megastar produced one of the most famous T20 knocks.
He might have cleared the boundary, he has!
The thrilling final over had it all.
It's a no ball and a 6.
Kohli there till the end to lead India to an incredible victory.
Ashwin goes over, clears the infield. India been a famous win.
I honestly have no words. I have no idea how that happened. Hardik kept telling me, just believe we can do it, stay till the end.
The King rates his unbeaten 82 his best ever T20 knock.
Today I will count this one higher because of the magnitude of the game.
Tim Hipsley, 7 News.
Jamie Carr says redemption is on her mind for the Melbourne Cup as she takes a ride on Smoke and Romans. The top Melbourne jockey admits she didn't watch last year's race as she served a 3-match suspension.
It was just a really difficult time, but we've put that behind us now, and obviously there was a lot of missed opportunities, so just making up for lost time now.
Damien Oliver gets the ride on Caulfield Cup winner Durston, but will need to drop weight to get under 53.5 kilos.
And I've certainly put a padlock on the fridge, and the diet has sort of got much stricter as well.
Oliver is going for a record-equalling 4th Cup win. A decade on from his first stint as world number 1, Rory McIlroy is once again on top of the golfing world. A one-shot victory in South Carolina moves the 33-year-old Northern Irishman back to the top of the rankings for a record-equalling 9th time.
It's a big achievement. I'm really proud of myself right now, and yeah, it means a lot.
McIlroy replaces American Scotty Scheffler at number 1. Max Verstappen recorded an emotional win for Red Bull in Texas a day after the death of the F1 team's founder Dietrich Mateschitz. Pole sitter Carlos Sainz spun out of the opening corner, and that was just the start of the drama.
Mighty compromise now as Fernando Alonso goes off the track. That's a high-speed crash, and he's made contact with Lance Stroll.
A tardy pit stop saw Verstappen drop to 6th with 20 laps to go, but the two-time world champion stormed back to post a record-equalling 13th win of the season. Dan Ricciardo finished 16th. There's more pain for LeBron James and his LA Lakers, going down to Portland in a heartbreaker.
LeBron to tie the game. And the Lakers are 0-3 to start the year.
No dramas, though, at the Warriors. Steph Curry hit 7 threes in Golden State's win over Sacramento. Another legend is struggling early in the season. Tom Brady and the Buccaneers have fallen to 3-4 after a 21-3 loss to Carolina. The last time Brady started a season this badly was 20 years ago.
Walker fires, caught, touchdown!
Meanwhile, feathers were flying as Freddie the Falcon wreaked havoc during halftime in Atlanta. The mascot sparked a bit of push and shove before the kid retaliated and all his teammates got involved. Mitch, that certainly got a little bit too willing, didn't it?
Yeah, I don't like to see that really, Tim. We don't need that, but Virat Kohli, we do need. How about...
Oh, the scenes at the MCG last night were unbelievable.
What an innings. Thank you very much indeed, Tim. New data shows Australians have returned to international travel at an astonishing rate. 80% of us are already planning the next trip, sparking fierce competition among the major airlines.
Virgin's boss is taking the post-pandemic airfare war to a new height. Launching its latest campaign mid-air.
Everybody sitting in the middle seat, every single one of you, has now a $6,000 voucher on Virgin voyages to a value of $6,000 US.
Trying to get a cruise in for like 3 years now.
Now we'll go home, unpack and see where we can go.
It's boosted by another deal to first get people in the air.
Today we launched 800,000 fares at great prices, starting at $55, to make sure that everybody's got the opportunity to get in and really enjoy and start to forward plan and get excited about the future.
But no promises that those prices will stay low.
It's too hard to tell what's going to happen with pricing going forward. There's natural inflation that affects our supply chain. Fuel prices are very high at the moment and they're volatile.
New data shows Australians have a post-pandemic travel bug. 3/4 have already had a getaway this year, and
4 out of 5 people in Australia are planning to book a holiday for 2023.
Southeast Asia is the top tourist destination.
Previously, Europe, there was a lot of bookings. But for us, which has been quite surprising, is the Middle East. So Egypt, Turkey, and even Northern Africa, Morocco, have been really popular destinations.
The way we travel has also changed.
They're wanting to not just sit around a pool for 7 days. They're really wanting to get out and explore the countries they're visiting.
As companies explore ways to cash in and catch up on COVID losses. Hope Wilson, 7 News.
Jane Barn is next with the forecast. And Jane, it looks rather unsettled tomorrow.
Absolutely, Mitch. The wind is lighter, but humidity rises, and we have the risk of thunderstorms. The full details are next.
Tonight on the latest from 7 News, what is there to hide? UN inspectors abandon a tour of our prisons after being turned away. The airline that's fared the worst in the latest report card on delays and cancellations, and everything you can expect to see in tomorrow's budget. When it breaks, we'll have it live at 11:15.
On 7 News, Melbourne's new property trend. Hotel-style living every day. The new home dream with a luxury edge. Plus, the moment of truth for families. What the federal budget means for you. 7 News with Peter Mitchell at 6.
Hello again. The city and suburbs are in a rain shadow today, while parts of northern and western Victoria are drenched. We have cloud overhead and there was a gusty southeasterly wind. That wind is finally easing back. It reached a top of 21, still 19 out there now. Just to the west, a Colax cloud. It was lower. It was raining also with a gusty wind this morning. Rain is affecting western Victoria and north central parts. Local storms in there. Oyen picked up 30 millimetres in a short time after 37 millimetres overnight. Our severe weather warnings were lifted this morning, but the thunderstorms can bring heavy rain and damaging winds to the northwest. This is what it looked like in Mildura just ahead of the latest storm coming in there this afternoon. Zooming in, and look how close it came to Melbourne, having a very different day than it was. The ranges to our north are protecting us from the rain, but some light rain spreads through this evening, mainly later. We have not one but two low pressure systems. The one over Mildura is slow moving. Now it lingers overnight before dissipating tomorrow. We're not done. The second low is here off the coast. It drenched southeast Queensland. It's heading southwards, drenching eastern New South Wales. It'll make it to Gippsland early tomorrow. So the first low continues today's rain tonight and for some of tomorrow. But the second low makes heavier rain develop here over Gippsland. Then showers and thunderstorms pop up nearby in the afternoon. Here is the current river flooding situation. Major flooding in the Loddon and Murray, moderate in the Campaspe and Goulburn, Severn and Castle Creeks and Broken Creek. Now here is the current flood watch. This shows the potential for further river rises in coming days, including that rain coming into Gippsland. So if you live near a river, keep up to date with the warnings. If you don't, there's no problem. Around the nation tomorrow, the risk of showers and thunderstorms in Brisbane, Sydney and Canberra. Hobart and Adelaide are showery. Sunshine returns to Perth. To Victoria, areas of rain in Gippsland, mainly east of Traralgon. Early rain elsewhere, that eases before showers and thunderstorms pop up all through these parts here in the afternoon and evening. It's mild, humid and unsettled. Closer in, areas of overnight light rain that clears out to a generally dry morning. But keep the umbrella handy, particularly in northern suburbs. Showers and storms are likely in the afternoon and evening, and it's heavy rain if you are directly under a storm. The winds are light, but the humidity is high. The city's 22, the risk of showers and storms in the afternoon and evening. To the 8-day outlook, we repeat on Wednesday. Humid, the risk of showers and thunderstorms in the afternoon and evening, about 21. Thursday and Friday, lots of showers passing through. Back to good old Melbourne weather. 20 before a cool change, 17 on Friday. Saturday, Derby Day, just the odd shower. Lovely on Sunday, then more wet weather next week. Tuesday, 14. Humid, unsettled tomorrow, 22. The risk of showers and storms, afternoon and evening, Mitch.
Goodness me, thank you very much for that, Jane. Now here's what's on Sunrise tomorrow.
Thanks, Mitch. Tomorrow on Sunrise, beating cyber criminals at their own game. The top 6 new tips to protect your personal info and avoid being hacked.
Plus, the very latest on the East Coast weather emergency as you wake up. See you in the morning, Melbourne.
And that's the way it is this Monday, the 24th of October. Thanks for your company. For now, from the 7 News team, good night.